This is an overview of your Clinical Practicum Improvement Change Model Logic Model Rubric. So as we're getting started with your improvement or change project for your clinical practicum, what you need to do is talk with your preceptor, the nurse manager or nurse administrator, and figure out what is a needed change in the organization. And you will be doing a change project surrounding that particular issue or area of improvement. So from that, you will actually complete a logic model. So there is a form included in the course, so use the logic model matrix when you're completing this assignment. That's very important because it will help guide you through the logic model process. So as you're doing the process, you will consider the makeup of the organization, and that includes the mission and the vision. You'll be taking a look at who are the stakeholders in this change, and I want you to think very broad when you're looking at stakeholders, because there's not only, even if it's specifically focused on maybe nurses, there are other folks who are stakeholders in the process of the change and may affect other stakeholders with the change. So keep that in mind because you want to think very broad about those stakeholders. You want to look at those influencers. Who influences the change or the improvement, and who has the power to either approve or disapprove. So those are all key stakeholders when you're looking at doing an improvement or a change. And of course, you want to think about if other departments within the organization that may be involved in the change or may be impacted by the change, and even maybe a quality improvement department, because they're the ones who typically do this type of process or guide this type of process as well. Or if there may be a shared governance within the organization, that's something to consider as well. So, as you identify your issue or problem, you really want to focus on why is this particular change or improvement needed. So you'll need to document that in your logic model. So we're thinking through the process as we're doing the logic model. You will describe the change, and you will use the model that you choose to structure the change, whether it would be Lewin's unfreezing model or Cotter's possibly change model, or you may use a PDSA cycle. So all of those are appropriate, but you need to clearly delineate what cycle or model you are using, including an overview of each one of the steps. And that's very important because as you structure your change or your improvement, you need to follow a system, and it's important to delineate what that system may be. The organization where you are doing your practicum may actually have a designated model that they use, so I would suggest using that model. Again, you will cite and provide an overview of the model that you will be using in your logic model. So, from that, you will also be conducting a literature review based on the particular chosen topic, the change or the improvement, and you will be looking at what the evidence says as far as addressing that particular improvement or change. So you will be looking at what the literature says to guide you as far as what you will implement or structure to make the change or the improvement. So keep that in mind, and you will need to include what you find in the literature in your logic model, and you will cite that using APA format. When you're citing within the logic model itself, make sure that you use the format that is on page 177 of the APA manual, just like you cite in the text of a paper. And then at the very end, you will have a reference list So just kind of keep that in mind. Then you will also establish one overarching goal for the project and at least 3 SMART objectives. And we've done SMART objectives, so make sure it's in correct format. Your objectives are in correct format. You will then construct a timeline, and your timeline needs to correlate with your change model or your improvement cycle. So say, for instance, if you use PDSA, the first section of your timeline will be the planning section, and then you will bullet point all the things that you're doing during planning with the time-sensitive dates or time frames. And then the next section will be the do section, so you'll list out everything that you're doing within your project under that section, again, making it time sensitive. So just kind of keep that in mind. You will do a timeline and it will correlate with whatever change model you are choosing or improvement process. So if you're doing Lewin's change theory, you would start out with the unfreezing. What are you doing during that section? And it needs to correlate with that particular model. And it's very deliberate that you're doing this so that you have that structure in your mind as far as what needs to be done when during your timeline based on the evidence-based change model or improvement process. So keep that in mind as you're completing your timeline. And your timeline can be bullet points. It does not need to be in paragraph form by any means. So just keep that in mind. Focus on being very clear and concise, because that's what is needed as you're doing changes out in the field. Okay, so you will also be indicating how this particular project will be sustained and how it will be evaluated. So there needs to be very specific evaluation metrics, and there may be quality assurance metrics that are going to be done monthly or quarterly to make sure that the change actually sticks and stays into place. During this particular project, you will be looking in the literature and you will be citing based on your change model. There needs to be at least 4 scholarly references from reputable sources as you're doing this assignment. So the rubric is listed out here. I want to remind you again, make sure that you use the change project logic model matrix form, and that's included in your course. But the logic model will help you to think through the requirements of this particular assignment, and it flows and it correlates with the rubric too. So there's instructions specifically listed on the logic model for your convenience to make sure that you get each component covered for your success in this assignment. So this is the overview of the assignment based on the rubric points and how many points there are for each section, but this flows in the same order as the matrix itself. So the other thing that I want to highlight, that there is a reflection at the end of the matrix model, and you can do sentence format in this section. You can use first person, those types of things, but I really want you to think about the process and what you've learned through the process. So use the questions as triggers for you to respond to the reflection section. This assignment is worth 30 points, so it's a significant portion of your course. I do want to highlight that your presentation will also be based on some of the information that you're gaining through the logic model, so just keep that in mind. You need to refer back to your logic model when you're pulling information forward for your presentation, such as what's out there in the evidence about your change or improvement, those types of things. So if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. I look forward to reading your logic models and then subsequently taking a look at your presentations as well. Take care now. Bye.